Hi everyone, welcome to this Code with Ken session by Progate uh, on getting started with SASS, which is something that, according to our speaker, gives superpowers to CSS. So, welcome to the session, and thanks a lot for joining us today. Introducing our speaker for the day, Akshat Bhanchawat. He's a third-year computer science engineering student at VIT Vellore, and he's a full-stack web developer. He has worked with multiple web development technologies, such as Angular and React and also a lot of other JavaScript libraries. He's a self-proclaimed JavaScript lover. He's been doing web development since he was 13 and has helped over 500 people and companies set up certain things in web development, search engine optimization, and social media marketing. He is presently the advisory technical head for SIAM VIT. SIAM is Society of Industrial and Applied Mathematics at VIT Vellore, and he's been the technical head there for the last 2 years. So, about
Thanks for the
Progate.
introduction, Simran.
Thank you for joining us today. About Progate. So, for those of you that are new here and haven't seen the Progate platform before, Progate is an online education platform for absolute beginners. It is intuitive and is designed for beginners to be able to start with new technology and excel. Progate is the largest coding learning platform in all of Japan and aims to be the largest coding learning platform in all of Asia. Uh, it is the best way that you could start to learn to code. And I do not say this as a representative of Progate. I say this as a learner from Progate. I have been learning on Progate for the past 1 year, and whenever I need to start on a certain technology and it's available on Progate, it's my favorite place to go to. And the concepts are taught so well, and the exercises on the fundamentals are so extensive that it makes you an independent coder and an independent learner once you're through with the courses at Progate. The vision of Progate is empowering everyone to open new doors through programming. The vision we speak of is that of the founder of the company Masa, who believes that programming changed his life, and at Progate we all believe that programming has the power to change our lives. So with programming, Progate aims to empower all people and open new doors of opportunities for them through technology and programming. The mission of the platform is to be the gate to the exciting world of programming, as I said, to be the platform that allows people to enter programming and start learning to code, but ultimately to be the path to build independent coders in the world. We're very happy to be here today and form a bit of that path as we move from initial learning of CSS to learning SCSS, which helps you style and create beautiful web pages, and also native applications, cross platform applications, considering CSS is used there as well. I think wherever JavaScript is used, CSS is used. So we're here to be the path to build independent coders, and this session is a part of that. Shall we get started? Are we ready, Akshat? Ready to get started today?
Yes, I'm ready. I think I should start now.
Sure.
Okay, so first of all, guys, are you familiar with CSS? Basic HTML and CSS. This is a prerequisite for this session. So please let me know about that. Or if you want me, so I can drive you through basics of CSS and then we can move to SASS.
Yeah, feel free to let us know in the chat. Only basic CSS. Nikhil, that's enough if you know basic CSS. That's all right. Where the prerequisite is just the basics. Yeah. I would suggest that if somebody does not know the basics of CSS, please make sure to mention that instead. So that'd be helpful. Yeah, okay. That's good to know that you know. I think we've got, I think all our audience here have a good understanding of the basics of CSS. So it shouldn't be
So I
an
think
issue.
we are good to go with SASS now. Uh, so, so hi everyone on here on Zoom and all other platform it is streaming. So I'll start the session and okay, so I'll share the screen, Simran.
Sure, go ahead.
Is it visible?
Yes, your screen is visible.
Okay. So guys, as Simran has already introduced me, uh, we should proceed now. So first of all, I'll start with the flow that I have decided. So I'll tell you first what SASS is. Then I'll do a basic comparison of CSS, SASS, and SCSS. Then I'll tell you about the SASS features. Then we'll move on to a demo application and wrap up. Okay, so while telling the SASS features, I'll also drive you through the code part and will show a demo of each of the snippet that we are going to do in the features. And then we'll use all of them in a demo application. Simran, can you
Perfect.
please post that link in the chat so that everyone can download the code?
Sure, I'll do that in a second.
Yeah. Okay, so what is SASS? You might be seeing this definition everywhere. I'm not going through all this definition and things. So what I say SASS is, it's CSS on steroids. Its full form is syntactically awesome style sheet, but I said CSS on steroids because it gives so much superpower to your CSS and it basically makes your coding workflow very easy and very powerful, very handy, right? So let's first do a basic comparison of CSS, SASS, and SCSS. CSS is used for styling all our web pages. HTML is the skeleton, while CSS is what the features or what like our eyes, our skin is to our body, the colors, everything. Now, CSS, there are many redundant things that are already made in CSS. If you have to style some things in, if you want to use same style in multiple elements, then we have to write redundant code. There are many issues with CSS. So people came out with SASS. SASS is basically more easy and programmatic way of writing CSS, and the code written in SASS script will ultimately be converted to CSS. So what does it mean and why is it happening? See, browser don't understand anything else than CSS. So ultimately we want CSS. So we came out with a way of writing some easy code and then compiling it to CSS. Similarly, like React and everything, React Angular, they ultimately get transpiled to JavaScript, right? Similar way. Now, SASS is a more Python way of writing CSS. You don't have any curly braces, you don't have any semicolons. So people who are working with CSS from a long time are not getting too much acquainted with SASS. So then they came out with SCSS. So combining the features of SASS and the writing style of CSS, SCSS is made. So, and now SCSS is the default and the most used style for writing the SASS code. The
What
extension for
does
SASS,
what
yeah.
does transpiled to CSS mean? Like,
So transpile to CSS is like we are writing code in SASS script. There are some functions that are specific to SASS, and the browser don't know that those functions. So those functions internally get converted to CSS when we compile it. Okay.
all right. Yeah.
So moving on. So some of the main features of SASS, and these are the features which make SASS amazing. We'll walk through each one by one. First is variables. Now SASS is there for long back, right? And CSS before doesn't have any possibility of creating variables and everything. Now CSS has inbuilt variable option, but SASS has this long back. Then we'll be talking about nesting, maps, functions, mixins, loop, inheritance, and partials. Functions in CSS. Seriously? Yes. Okay, so okay, I guess I should move this little bit. So variables. Many times you want to define, yeah. So there are some, let's say we are using, let's say you want to code a website, or we want to style a website which is using two themes. One is dark theme and one is light theme. Now, uh, or in the runtime, if we want to change some of the parts, that some of the parts in that particular color scheme is used at multiple places. So how do we do it? So for this, we have variables. We are defining it once and we can use it anywhere. And once it is, and if you want to change anything at later point, we can just change at this variable point, and then it's get reflected everywhere. So I'll also try to walk you through a demo of this. So to define a variable, we'll use a dollar sign and then name of the variable. I should start the notation. So we can start with a dollar sign and the variable name. This is same as PHP, and use colon, and then we can define the color. And to use this, like if I'm, as you guys told me, you're acquainted with CSS. So in background color, if we want to change the background color of body, what we used to do is we used to write the code like hash, FFF and everything. Now we have defined the color code here, and we can simply use the variable here. Let me walk you through this. So I have created a basic file. Yeah. So can you guys see my screen and VS Code, and is the font clear? Is it visible?
Yeah.
Yes, cool.
Yeah.
Okay. So I have created a file, index.html file and a main.scss file. Note the extension. Now we don't use SASS as extension, we use SCSS as extension. And for this to work, what you have to do is you have to install an extension in VS Code. There are multiple ways of doing, compiling SCSS, SAS. So first one is we have to create a node server maybe, and then using Gulp or anything, we can compile SAS to CSS. But VS Code, since VS Code is most powerful IDE for web development, and I totally love it. It has a nice extension. It's called Live CSS Compiler. You can go on the page and you can install it. After installing, you just have to restart your VS Code and you're done. So coming back, we'll write all our CSS code in this main.css file. And if I show you, and to compile it, I use this watch SAS option here. Now it will look for any changes that is made in this SCSS file and will update it in the main CSS file, as you can see here. Since we are not using any, we have not added any CSS code here, so nothing is here. So let's start. So in index.html, I'll create a basic HTML document. For this, you just have to write the exclamation mark and press tab and say this SAS demo, and make sure you import the main.css file. So I'll do this. It's called main.css, and I'll also start my live server so that any changes we made here will be visible. So yes, I can see SAS demo, and as there's nothing on this, nothing in our code, we're seeing a blank screen. So first of all, I'll start with adding an h1 tag. Let's say hello. Is it working? Yes, I can see hello here. So we are good to start. I'll give this hello ID, let's say title1, and in the main.scss file, you can see it's watching for the SCSS any changes. So what I'll do here is hash. Hash is for our ID. We are using ID here, so that's why we are targeting it with hash selector, ID selector, and I'll give it a color of, let's say, maybe pink or red, anything. And we can see red color here. This is our SCSS file and this is a CSS file. For now, both are same, right? Nothing is different. Now, let's use some variables. What if I create 3 h tags. I'll name this title 2. I'll name this title 3. Okay. Now I want to use this color in all of these. So one conventional way is I'll create separate ID selectors for all of these, and then add the color here. And I can see demo here. Right? And now what if I want to change the color? For every individual element, I have to go here and I have to change the color, right? Like black or whatsoever. I don't want to do this. So I'll define a variable here. To define a variable, simple thing, we use $sign and I'll say, I'll call it text, and giving the text a color of black. Cool. Just for styling purpose, I'll also give body a color so that we can differentiate text easily. Let's say background color of this will be good, I guess. Yeah. Okay. So I'll give it black color for now and use this dollar text. And by the way, guys, if you have any doubt in between, you can please unmute yourself or write in chat so that we make sure we are always on the same page. And you can see black color is here. Also, I don't like this font. I'll change it for sure. Yeah, you're good to go. So this is how we are using variables. Now, if I want to change this color all in once to, let's say, white, I'm changing it at one place and it's getting reflected everywhere. So this is the power of variables that SASS provides us. Moving on to next thing, we are nesting. Simran, can you please check the waiting room? It's coming in between.
Yeah, I'll take care of that. Don't worry.
Yeah. Okay. So here we have nesting. So nesting basically is like one element belong, the parent and the child relationship is properly described in nesting. Like if in body, if I have a paragraph element, in conventional CSS, what I have to do is, if I want to target a element, I have, and if I want to make sure it targets the element in a particular parent, I have to first write the parent's name and then target the element. With CSS, we can write the parent name and nest the child element inside it and add any property we want. So this is how, similarly for this, we can use pseudo selectors, we can use ID selectors, class selectors, or the parent tags also, right? So we'll see a demo of this also. I'll show you the CSS code also. Ah, yeah, by the way, yeah. So this was our SCSS file, and when we compiled it, this is our CSS file. Now you can see we are using variable, and we have defined a variable here, and we are using variable here. In the CSS file, it automatically populates this with the variable name. And anytime we do this, update this, it automatically updates in the main CSS file also. So we don't have to worry about pointing out individual elements and then writing. So let's move on to nesting. Now let's say in this h1 tag, first h1 tag, I'll create a span, and let's say world. Basic example, hello world, right? Never mind. I'll okay. Let's not give it any ID. Now, if I want to target it, I have two ways. Either I can directly target the span as a parent element, but it will target all the span in the whole web page. I want to target the span that is present inside the title one, inside this ID. So what I will do is I get span inside this title, and let's say give it a color of. I want to lighten the color. Sorry. Yeah. I'll give it a color of, let's say, text. and by how much percent I want to lighten it. So let's say I'll do it for 40%. This lighten is nothing specific to SASS. It is already present in CSS. Now when I can see this black, and the span which I have targeted is in a light black grayish color. It has basically lightened it, right? So this is how nesting is done in SASS. Any doubts till now? I guess not. Still, if you have any doubts, you can please unmute or write in chat.
Please feel free to leave any questions you have in the chat.
Someone raised
No
hand.
questions are silly questions. I assure you.
Okay, so shall we proceed? Shall we proceed?
Yeah, I don't see any doubts as of right now.
Yeah, forgot to show you this. Now we are writing span inside the title one. In the compiled CSS file, this is the main.css compiled file. Here you can see all the titles, and with the title one, you can see span. This is how we in normal CSS target elements inside a parent class, and it automatically gives colors. It lightens and gives the color to the element. Powerful, very powerful. Right. Moving on to maps. Now maps are key value pairs. I hope you might know this, what maps are. This map concept is new to SASS, and you might have used dictionaries in Pythons or hash set, hash maps in Java, hash map basically in Java. So this is same similar kind of thing. Here we define a variable, and in variable we store key value pairs. So this is the main variable, and here key and the value, key value. And to use this variable, to use any property of this map, we use this function map.get. We pass in the name of a map. So for here, our name of the map is weights, and then we pass the property that we want to access. So I want to access the bold property. So it returns me the 700 value. Right. So let's see a demo of this also. Okay. Yeah. So first of all, let me create some paragraphs. Let's say let's create 3 paragraphs. In first paragraph, I'll write welcome to it. That's enough, right? We can see this here. Welcome to Progate. I love SASS, and that's enough. Now I want to bold. I want to apply specific properties to this. So first of all, let me give IDs to this. Let's say ID equals to para1. For others, I will change para2, para3. Now in my main SASS file, yeah. So in this file, I'll first target the first paragraph element. If I created ID of it, yeah. So this is para1, and here I want to use a map. I've not created a map yet, so I'll create a map first. So what I'll do, I create a dollar weights. This will be the name of a map. We'll use parentheses, and then the property name in quotes. So it will be like normal. I'll assign a weight of 100. Medium, I'll assign a weight of, let's say, 400, and bold, I'll assign a weight of 700. This is the normal bold. Don't forget to put a semicolon after this. I've struggled with this a lot, many times, right? Okay. Now to use this, uh, you might know we use text decoration and font weight. These are the properties that we can use to modify some text, right? So since I'm dealing with the font weight, I'll use font dash weight, and I'll write map.get, and here I'll pass on the name, that is weights. So I'll write dollar weights, and the key. What's the key? I want this first paragraph to be bold, so I'll use the key bold. without quotes. When I save it, you can see in the compiled CSS, we have para1 and font weight of 700 is automatically assigned to this. And when we see here, we have seen welcome to Progate as in bold. Right. Now let's do the same for other paragraphs also. Let's do para 2, para 3. I'll assign a weight of medium. Here I'll set it to normal. And if you watch it closely, you can see this is bold, this is semi-bold, and this is normal text. Cool. Any doubts till now? So you might be wondering why we're using maps and why not simply use variables. So if we want to group some kind of properties together so that when we are working in a production level code, we need some properties, some standard code that is shared across all the developers. We need to be consistent in that. So keeping all the properties in a systematic way is basically the task of map. Right. So let's proceed. Functions. This is my favorite part in SASS. So functions, we have seen functions in Java, JavaScript, Python, C, C++, everywhere, right? So functions are used to return a value in SASS, and we can create our own functions. We can return everything. And one of the important features of SASS is it allows you to do arithmetic operations, plus, minus, multiplication, division, anything. So yeah, let's see how do we define a function. So we use the @ sign followed by function keyword, right? And then we define the function name. And if we want to pass in any parameter, we can pass it like this. And then we return whatever we want to return. And then to use it, we simply do it like any other, like we use functions in any other languages. So if I want to set font weight to bold, I'll just use the weight function and I pass the parameters bold. Now, why are we doing this? See. Yeah. So why are we doing this? So if we want to, like whenever we want to access the property weights, I used to write this redundant code every time, map-get weight, and then pass the parameter. I don't want to write this much code. I'll opt for an easy one. So I'll write function. And also I'll write the function name as, let's say, weight, and I'll pass a parameter that will be, yeah. So this parameter will be, let's say, weight, and I'll return map dash, and here I'll pass in this weights variable. Paste it here, and for the key that we want to access, I'll use this variable weight. This might be confusing to you. I'll rename it to name. So here what we are doing is we are creating a function, giving it a name, passing it the attribute, parameter, anything, and then we are returning the map weight. This is the weights map and the name of the key that we want to access. So we now don't have to write map-get every time. What we can do here is we can simply call get weight and pass in, let's say, bold. Here we can write get weight and pass in medium. Here we can write get weight, pass in normal. This is a basic example so that you can get the intuition of what SASS can do. There are much more possibilities with functions, but I'm showing here a basic example. If I save it, and we can see everything is the same. So this is working properly, and we can see there is no compilation error also, right? So I guess functions are clear. If you have any doubt, please raise your hand or comment in the chat, write in the chat, or you can unmute yourself also and ask. Shall we proceed?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So this was all about functions. Also, one more thing I forgot to tell. In functions, you can pass in some default value also. Like in getWeight name, if I want to make sure that if someone directly calls the function getWeight without any parameter, I'll automatically assign this name to, let's say, normal, and this would work fine. If no parameters passed, automatically normal will be assigned to the name and we can work with it. Cool. So let's proceed now. Now we have mixins. What are mixins? There's some code which you want to type again and again. Like if I say, which I've experienced the most, if we're using, let's say, when we're using grids, if you're familiar with grids, we need to, if you want to align something in center, for every piece of code, we need to write text align center, justify content center, align item center, all these things. I don't want this redundant code to be uh, written again and again. So I can use mixins. So what are mixin? Mixin basically, so what we do is we basically define a mixin. It kind of a variable that stores a block of code. We use this variable and we can call it anywhere. So this particular code which is written inside this mixin automatically gets populated here. We use @include to call the mixin, and we define a mixin with @sign, @mixin. We write the mixin name, and in the block we encapsulate with all this with the code that we want to write. Right. So let's proceed. There are two types of mixin, by the way. The first one, we can just use the mixins as it is. We don't need to modify any of the properties. In that case, we can directly call the mixin. And if at later stage we want to modify some particular property of a mixin, then again we have two options. First one, we can use this content. This populate any. So if we use this @content decorator, you can see in mixins in this block, I'm writing color. So this gets populated here. So it's a nice thing to use. I'll show you a demo of this also. Yeah. So let's first define a mixin. Okay, I want to make my headings with some borders, and let's say I want to change the color or I want to add some padding for every heading. What I'll do is I'll add mixin. I'll name it my, let's say, heading style. Now what I'll do, I'll write border. Border I want 5, let's say 10 pixels. I want a solid border, and the border color I want to be, let's say, some off-white or some transparent white. So I'll write RGBA. RGBA is alpha. Basically, you can write the transparency. I'll write the color as, let's say, white. And the alpha value, that is transparency value, I'll set it to 0.5. Okay. And I'll show you how this mixin looks here. So I'll write include, what's the name of the mixin? Heading style. So this gets included here. You can see there are no errors. And we zoom this out, and we can see a thick border around this hello world. I want to use this for everything, and this is just one line of code. Let's add some more. So let's say I want border radius to be 10 pixels, and this is looking very close to each other. So also add a padding. Let's add a padding of 10 pixels. Yeah, I think this looks good now. Maybe we can change padding to 5 pixels. Yeah. Okay, so this is now only applied to this particular heading. And as you can see in the main.css file, we're using this mixin in title 1. We're including this mixin in title 1. So let's find title 1. Title 1 is here, and you can automatically see border radius and padding gets populated, gets copied inside the title 1. And again, we can include this mixin to others as well. That looks good. Right. So with just one block of code, we have uh, you can call it as a variable of code, right? Variable of a block of code. So with just one variable, I've included in all the headings, and it's working fine. Now let's say I want to modify a property. I'll create another what we say variable, secondary text. Okay, and I want to assign. I always want that secondary text gets a bit lighter version of the text of the primary text. So our secondary text, I think used this somewhere. Yeah. So this will be my secondary text. I'll remove it from here also. Yeah. So I've defined a new variable secondary text that takes in this text as a variable that as a color variable, and it lightens it by 40%. Now to change this in a mixin, I'll just write here @content. This will populate any content that we write in the mixin. So as of now, we are just using heading style. What we can do is we can create a block with it, and inside this, I can write say color. By the way, you might be wondering, I can define color here also. So writing code in SASS, as I told, is mostly used in production codes, right? Where we have a group of developers and we are working on same piece of code, and everyone should have a uniform understanding of what we're making, right? So this is why I'm nesting this inside the heading style. So let's say color to be secondary text. I'll remove this color from here. When I save it, I can see this is changed. So we can modify the properties of mixins also. Now there's one disadvantage with mixin. The main disadvantage is the code redundancy. In our main.scss file, we're just including this mixin, but you can see in CSS file, every time we include a mixin, these things get copied everywhere like this. So we have a lot of redundant code. We don't want this, right? So we'll see how we can resolve this issue also. So next we have is, I guess I'm not missing anything in mixins. Yes, it's done. I have loops. Loops are amazing. Loops is amazing features of SASS. Like you can achieve the world with loops in SASS. Okay, I'll create some more paragraphs. Let's say I create some more headings. Yeah, so I have like 1, 2, 3. I have 7 headings here, right? I'll for now remove all the mixins from here. Yes, so I have 7 headings. Now I want all the headings to be in a gradient way. As I have shown in the slide, I want some kind of gradient to see in my headings. So what I'll do is, how will I define a loop? I'll use it @for. All the features, all the inbuilt features of SASS are mostly starting with @ symbol, or the functions basically. So here we are defining a variable. It's called $I, right? Like we do in for for I equals to this, I less than something, and I plus plus. Similar kind of thing. So we can do is from 1, starting with 1 through 3. That is starting from 1, I want to go to 3, and the index start at 1 here, right? So what I'll do, and for every value, I'll I'll target it with the variable value and make some adjustments. I'll show you on the go. Okay, so here's my code. I'll create a for loop. Let's see how the page looks now. This hello, 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 hello. Right. I'll target. So first of all, I'll create a loop at the rate for. And see, VS Code has many plugins. It automatically suggests you what what the syntax is. So you don't have to remember all the syntaxes. And if anytime you want, you can open the documentation of SASS. It's sas-lang.com/documentation. And anytime you can open it, refer it. It's a good practice, and you will get something new from there also. So I'll start from 1, and I have 7 headings, right? So I'll go through 7, and yeah, I want to target all the h1 tags. So I'll write h1. And I'll use a pseudo selector that is nth child. Nth child is basically like there are 10 h tags on my page, and I want to target only the 5th h tag. So I'll h1 tag. So what I'll do is I'll write h1 nth child, and I'll write 5 here. This way I'll target the 5th element directly. For now, I want to target every element and change some property of it. So what I'll do is I'll write $i. No, this won't work because end child is a property of CSS, and CSS don't know what dollar is. So we use interpolation. Interpolation basically makes, basically place in the variable value for every iteration. So what I'll do is I'll put here hash. This process is called interpolation. So now every n child and this value will be populated with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 respectively. Now in this, I can change my property. So let's say I want color to be lightened by what color I want to be lightened. So just text, I guess. Yes, my primary color is text. And with every iteration, I want to lighten the code by 10%. So I'll use the variable value I, and I multiply it with 10%. That's it. Simple mathematics. And you can see I can use the multiplication operator here, right? When I save this code, I can see no errors. In the main CSS file though, you can see for every h1 tag, it has created nth child 1, nth child 2, nth child 3, and you can see the color codes are changing automatically. Yeah. And okay. So I remove all the yes. So now I can see a gradient. First one is the darkest, then it's getting lighter. Yes. So we have done this with loops. Amazing, right? With just one piece of code, we have targeted multiple elements. We are using the loop and using the variable value. We are doing some calculations and setting different properties or setting different color values for each element. So this is one amazing feature provided by SASS. So like here we have seen for loop, there is while loop, there is for each loop also, but we are not going to cover that in this session as this is for beginners. So let's move on to inheritance. Now the problem I told you with mixins, it basically increases the code redundancy. It copies the same code everywhere. So instead of mixin, now I will extend some properties. So for now, let's say I'll give my title back. ID of title. Yes. Here I'll remove the for. I'll just comment it out. And in the title, let's say, give it this value, right? So everything is back to normal. We have, for this particular title value, we have all this styling that we have added. Now what I'll do is, this is my parent property, right? Now I want all these properties to be used inside this title also. So what I'll do is, I'll use the keyword extend, and I'll write the parent ID class or parent element name. So here I've used this properties in title, title1, ID title1. So I'll extend this and I'll save it. And you can see same styling is applied to this one also. So mixing is doing the same thing, but internally it is different. Now when I see the CSS code, the compiled CSS code, you can see title1 and title2 are targeted, and all the are targeted in this at the same time, and all the properties, the common properties which they have been applied here, and now their individual specific properties are individually applied as we have done there, as we have done in the specific code here. Similarly, we can extend this to title 3 also. I'll extend title 1. And this property is applied here also. Amazing. So, and you can see in the compiled CSS, we can see all the titles, this, and this are used at the same time, and the common code is applied universally to this. So SASS is pretty amazing at figuring out what code belongs to what particular class. So it will automatically take out all the common code and put it together, and the element specific tag or ID specific code, sorry, and the ID specific code, it will create separate properties for them. So this was about the extend keywords. Now, one another major difference with extend is we can't pass in some variable. So if I show you, let's say this heading style, this was a mixin that we created. I can also pass a parameter to this. Let's say I'll pass a variable called color, and let's say I want to change border color here. So instead of this whitish thing, I want the user to define the color. So in mixin, I have passed the color as parameter. This will automatically populate here. So if I remove this extends and here I use just the mixin. Heading styles. Heading style, and I can now pass whatever color I want. Let's say I want this to be red. It's showing some compilation error, I guess. Yes, we have not defined some property here. Are we using mixin anywhere else? Don't know what's the error with this. I have to figure it out. I might be passing some wrong, or I'm using some redundant thing here. I have to check with everything, because if I'm using color anywhere, then it can't be used here. Anyway, so we can leave this for now. You can check the documentation, or I might be using some redundant code here. Never mind. I'll set this back to normal. Yeah, but this was one benefit with Mixin, that we can pass a variable and that variable gets populated to the Mixin code. So we don't need to separately write it there. If we are very sure about the code that yes, we will be passing a variable, we'll be asking the user to pass, or we'll be asking our other developers to pass the color as per the requirements, and other properties we want them to be common across everything. So in that case also we can use Mixin, but we can't use extends there because it copies all the properties as it is, and then separate properties we need to write it again. Is everything fine now? Yes, we have no error. So let's move with, okay, one more thing. In inheritance, if I want to, this is a title, right? If I want to change the color of the title on hover, what usually in CSS I do is I use hash title and then use hover property, the hover pseudo selector, and then I'll get background, let's background color, right? Color to be, let's say, what's the default color? Black. And change it to green. Title 1. Now I can see this color is getting changed to green. But with SASS, we don't have to do this. We can simply use and symbol and that's pretty much it. We can use the pseudo selectors as you can see here. We are using and symbol, and this is a extended version of the property. I'm using a pseudo selector here for let's say hover. This and will automatically populate the title one here. And on hover, let's say change the color to blue this time. Yeah. And when I hover, this is getting changed to blue. As you all can see. So without writing title again, I can just use and it populates the word title here. And in the main CSS file, as you can see, it's creating kind of atomic structure for everything, right? So this was one more thing. And partials. Now, if we talk about production level code, some big application, not all developers will be like, everyone will be assigned some specific files, some specific tasks. Like if I want to develop an authentication page, I need same kind of stylings, some common stylings, and I want other stylings to be created by myself. And let's say I have a dashboard, I have an authentication page, I have a sign up page. I have a group of 3 developers. To every developer, I have assigned a single page, right? So everyone will write their own CSS, everyone will write their own HTML code or any React, if they're coding in React or Angular, whatsoever it is. So to enable this collaborative coding and to enable this, like everyone should write their individual code and everything gets compiled or everything gets together at one place. We use partials. So to define partials, let's say we have a fixed format to define partials. So I'll create a new file. I'll name it, by the way, partial start with underscore. The name of a partial file start with underscore. I'll name it variables.scss. Why I've created it with named variables? Because I want that these variables to be accessed universally. I don't want this color theme to be changed anytime. So I'll copy all these variables. If I compile the code, we'll see an error because all this color, or not color, this text, secondary text are not available here. I paste all this variables here and I include this variable file in my main CSS. So our main CSS will be the file that ultimately will be our production file. And as you can see in the, let's see, with main.css file, this automatically added some browser specific codes to the files. I'll show you in the demo application that we're going to build. Okay, so Simran, have you shared the link with everyone, the GitHub link?
Yes, I have. I'll put it in the chat once more. The GitHub repository has both the code and the slides for your future reference.
Yes, correct. Thank you, Simran. So what I'll do is now I'll import. I'll use this import tag, and then I'll write the file name. Now to write the file name, we don't include this underscore, and we don't include the extension. We simply write dot. We are using dot slash because it is in the same directory. Had it been in any other directory, I'll give the relative part to that directory. Okay, so I've used variables here. Don't forget to put a semicolon, and all these things will automatically be imported here. Now if I check this, it's working fine, no issue. Right. Now let's say I want in my production code, if anytime I want to change color of the text, I want the color to be, let's say, red for now. I'll change this to red. I don't have to refer to anything in this file. I'll simply go to the variable file. I know all my variables, all my color schemes will be stored in variable file. I'll go to the variable file. I'll change the color to red. Boom. We have everything with red color, right? So this is how uh, partials are very useful for us. So for every component, we create separate partials, and then every partial is included with the main file. And so the final output that we get, how do we close this? Yeah. So this is my compile main.css file, and the variable properties are already populated here. The color black, the color blue, everything. So this is how partials are very useful. Okay. So we have seen partials. Now it's time to get your hands dirty. We'll create a basic demo application. It's not an application, it's a single web page. Uh, Basically, it's a single view that we're going to create using SASS, and we'll be using all the properties where we'll be going to add some animations to this, so that we can have a feel of SASS, right? So I request all of you to download the code from here. It's bit. It's bit.ly slash from CSS to SASS. It's all in lowercase. So in this file, I have included, I'll show you the folder. Yeah. So this is a folder structure. I have an index.html file. I have a CSS file. The main is main.css, main.scss, and CSS map. And we have an image. What are we going to build? I'll first show you a demo of it. I'll stop the live server from here. This was the previous file that I was showing you the demo with. I'll now move to the code that I have shared with you. What we'll be doing is I'll uncomment the code one by one. I'll first show you the demo, then I'll uncomment the code one by one, and I'll walk you through all the SCSS files, because we have limited time and we can't write all the code here in the session. So I have already created this and shared with you, and you can also use this for your future reference, and also the PDF of the slides is included, so that you can refresh up your basics anytime you want. So, okay, we'll go live with this. So this is the page that we are going to build now. You can see some nice animation here. For this particular tutorial, we're not going to focus on responsive design, because that needs some media queries and that can't be covered now, right? So this is the page. This is the basic. You can say it's a landing page for a company, like welcome to my company, and we have some bullet points like, yes, we are amazing, we create innovative products, and here's a contact form so that you can contact the company people anytime, right? So let me drive it through the code. I'll first comment everything so that we end up with a blank page. Yes, we have a blank page now, and also the CSS thing. So see, what I have done is I have selected the HTML and body in the SCSS file, and I've set those margins and padding to 0, because by default browser style sheets add some margin and padding to this to these attributes and to basically to every tags. So this is kind of preset I do with each of my code, so that I have a complete view. I don't want any margin or padding on either of the side. So now, yeah, you might have seen those two background circles. How have I created that? So it's a thing called clip path in CSS. What a clip path? So by default, CSS has a box layout, right? If you want to give shape to a particular thing, we use clip path. Let's say I have two circles, right? So I have created two divs here. One is saying BG1. I should uncomment all this one by one. Section. I'll drive you all this through all this. Don't worry. Yes, we are good to go. So for now, we just have this right circle. You can create any shape with clip path. Let's say if we want to talk about circle, we have this property, we have this function called circle. Here we pass in 80% of the actual available screen that we have, and that should start at 0 and 50%. So 0 is basically the x-axis. So at 0%, it's starting at the center of the circle is here on the x-axis, and at 50% here. So all this we have the full screen y-axis, and this full is the x-axis, and here we have the center. So 0, 50. This is what it means. I'll share with you a nice website. I don't remember its name. It helps in generating clip path. I guess you can Google search it. CSS clip path generator. Yes, this is the one. Yeah, so I can create triangle, I can create circle, any of the shape. What I have to do is, let's say, like I have created a circle for this example. So where's the circle? Yes, we have a circle here. So I'll give the circle any of the size, what size I want, at what position I want, top, bottom, left, right. I can change the canvas size. Let's say I want a screen, laptop type of screen. So I can change height and the width of it. And all the position, I can resize the circle. Anything we can do it with this. And what ultimately we have to do is, we have to copy this code, clip path. There's also option to include the prefix. I'm not doing it now because uh, SASS automatically do it for me, browser specific. Like we have to include for Internet Explorer, or we have to include for Mozilla, use the dash moz, or we have to use for Apple and Chrome, that is WebKit. So SASS automatically handles all those imports or all those properties. So I'll do clip path circle. For my particular example, I've done something like this. I've set it to 80% and then set the center to 0 and something like that. The canvas size is also different there, right? So this way you can create many shapes. For now, I've created circle. For background one, I've set it to 80%, 0 and 50. This is how it looks. I've also created a background 2. So I'll uncomment this. It's basically a div with ID BG2. And you can see this is the one circle and this is another circle. And we are already ready with the background. I'll walk you through the CSS also. So clip path basically defines the boundaries. I want the background color of this to be this kind of purple, whatever color it is. I want color to be this. So I have defined the color. I want it to be 100%, position to be absolute, because I want to position it where at a particular point I want. We are using this in this case. And Z index I have set it to -1, so that this doesn't overlap with any of our front part of the page, that is introduction or company header, or let's say the contact form, right? So I've set the Z index to -1 so that it's always in background. The same thing I've applied to background color too. Now you can see there is some redundant code, right? Width, height, position, absolute position, Z index, background color. All this is redundant code. The only thing it is changing is the clip path. So what can I do? What can I do here? I can either extend or I can use mixins, right? So here I'll extend this. I've created this file so that you can with me code here and you can get the feel of it. So I'll get this part down because I only want to modify this. I'll remove everything and right extend, and I want to extend bg1. Same results, nice. And in our main CSS file, we have uh, body bg1, body bg. This is happening because, sorry, yeah. So this is happening because we have defined everything in body. So it's considering body and then bg1, and then body bg2. And body height I have set to 100% for obvious reasons. Okay. Now I want my logo to appear here. I don't have any logo for this hypothetical company, so I'll just write something here. It says my SASS tutorial. And by the way, you might be wondering why I'm using all these headers and then main. So it's a good way to code in HTML. Basically, this is very helpful for this is very helpful for search engine optimization purposes, and also it gives semantics to a web page. Like we know what header is. It's nothing. It's kind of a div, but it has some implicit meaning, right? So I've added a header, and it says my SASS tutorial. Correct. I'll walk you through the CSS of it also. So I have targeted the H2 directly here because I don't think I'm using H2 anywhere. I'm setting the color to white, padding left to 10 because I want a little space here. I have setting the top margin to 0 and padding top to a little bit, padding top to 0.5 em. Em is basically the height of a parent or the value of a parent. In our case, it's 16 pixels, right? Instead of writing 16 pixel, I'll use 1 em. So 0.5 em will be 8 pixels for now. So, okay, why I'm not using, why I'm not adding margin to it? Because if we add margin, it will push whole web page down. By default, all the H1 tags have some margin. So I'm H1, H2 tags have some margin. So I'm setting it to 0 so that it doesn't disturb the page and full page is visible on the screen. No scroll bars are there, right? For this purpose. And that's why I'm adding a little bit padding because padding is inside the box layout. Now let's, by the way, I have added some comments to the code also so that if you refer to this in future or if you're referring to this now also, you can have a basic idea of what exactly what element we are targeting. Okay, so here we have the main. What is main? In main, I have two sections. This is the first section. I call it info. I want information to be appear on the left side and I want the contact to appear on right side, contact form to appear on right side. So for this, I'm using grids. Don't worry if you don't know grids. It's a very easy thing. I'll show you a basic demo of it also. So for now, let's see how does it look. So it says welcome to our company, and this thing is populated. Okay. So I have a H2 that says welcome to our company. This is the H2. Welcome to our company. I have created a card. This particular code is of the card, and in the card I have this image of a human. You can see the image that we have positioned to this particular location, and as I'm saying, we are not focusing on responsive layouts as of now, so I've just positioned it using absolute terms. Then we have an unordered list. In unordered list we have list items, and each list item has a span of class bullet. Why I'm using this bullets? Because I want this some colorful bullets to be used. I don't want to style the inbuilt unordered list bullets. I want to create my separate own bullets. So that's why I'm using a span of bullets, and then I'm adding, and we are amazing. We're using the EM emphasis tag for this. So you can see it's a slightly italics. It's basically a new semantic way of writing italics. Okay. If we see the CSS for this, so first of all, let's see in the main. Open it side by side. So in the main tag, you can see I've set display to grid. Now, as you know, grid is, got it? So it's basically basically boxes. It has rows and it has columns. So I want to deal with columns only. I don't want any rows because I have a fixed 2-column layout. So I have defined a grid and in grid template columns. This is the property that we can use to define the size of the columns. And if you're using, see, I have written 50% and auto. So it automatically create 2 columns. First one will be of size 50%, and the second auto will occupy the remaining space. So for our case, it will be again 50%. If I set it to 40% here, then the auto will automatically adjust the second column to 60% of the width. So we have the ratio of 40 and 60. So for now we have 50 and 50. Now grid template areas. How will our element know that which part of the grid it has to go or which part of the grid the element has to fit in? So for this, we have this info and contact. This is the info part, and here we will have the contact part. I have defined, you can name it anything you want. You can name it blah blah blah, and you can name the other one as blah 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 too. It doesn't matter. The only thing is we will use this to let the elements know where they have to fit in. So here I have this, I have 2 names, info and contact. Now in the section, there are some things that are common to all the sections, right? So I have created a parent section. I want its height to be 100% and I want margin to be 0 and auto. What 0 and auto does? So in HTML, we have, in CSS, we have different ways of defining properties to top, right, bottom, and left. So if I write margin, let's say 0, 0, 0, 0, this means the first 0 means top, second 0 means right, third means bottom, and fourth means left. For top, right, bottom, and left. If I just write 0, then all top, right, bottom, left will be automatically set to 0. If I write 0, comma, let's say 5 pixel, then this means for top and bottom I want 0 margin, and for left and right I want 5 pixels margin. So this is how we define. So here what we have done is we are setting margin top and bottom to 0 because we don't want any margin, and auto will center will automatically add margins to both left and right. So our elements will be centered. So as you can see, everything is centered in this particular grid. If I show you the grid layout here, you can see we have 2 grids. You can see the separator line. Yeah, you can see the separator line. So in the separator line, the left part is our section information, and the right part is our that will be our contact one. So this left part, this left grid, it has centered all the contents of the left grid, right? That's why we are using auto. Cool. So now I want to target the information section of this. So we have a section. We have already targeted the section. Now we want to target a section that has a class of information. In CSS, we our class info. In CSS, to target any IDs, we use hash. To target any classes, we use dot. Here I'm using class, so I target it with a dot. And as I told you, the use of and, it basically populates it this with section. So in our compile CSS, it will be like section.info. Now I'll first, in the information info class, I'll define what area I want these elements to be appear in. So I'll define grid area to be info. This info is coming from here. Grid template areas. First of all, we have created a grid. We have 2 columns basically. We have given name to each of the column, and now we are using this name to define define a particular area. So I have said I'm saying that I want the information info class to be to appear in grid area info. I want to align content to center, justify content to center so that it's pushed down or between, and I'm setting the margin top to 3 em and and left also to 3 em, so that we have here a little bit of spacing. Now I have this h2. I want to target this h2 that is inside info. So here we are using nesting. Nesting, remember I told you we can nest child elements inside the parent elements, right? So we are using H2. We're transforming the text to uppercase. So no, as you can see here, we have write in sentence case. Our first letter is only capital and rest all are small. But using the text transform property of CSS, we are transforming everything to uppercase. So we have this thing is up in uppercase. We are setting the color to white. We are setting the font size to 3 em. Now, as you can see, I'm not using any variables. I'm leaving this as a task for you to modify this code and then set some variables. Like we are using white, we are using this kind of purple color here, white here. Then again, we are using basically a light transparent version of the black, and then again this purple color. So I'm leaving that to you for you to modify and to practice. Okay. So this is all for our information column that is on the left side, info column. Now we can move on to the contact part. Okay, before that, we have a card also. So it is recommended not to nest too much. Like I have a main, then I'm nesting section, then I'm nesting info, then I'm nesting H2. This is 4 level of nesting. And if we see our main.css file, you can see how it's created. We have main, then we have main section info, we have main section info, and then H2. So this is too much of nesting. So again, I'll leave this to you to modify. Okay. So let's look at, yeah. So till now we have covered till this part, this background, this heading, the text here. Now we have to create a card, and we have to make the bullets, and we have to assign this amazing effect to the bullets, slide in effect, and we have to keep this human here. Okay, so for this, what we're doing, so in the info class, I have a div called class card, right? In the section info, I have a div with class card. I'm setting its margin top to 5 em so that we have a little bit spacing here between the company and between the card. Then we are setting width to 80%. I don't want it to cover whole of this width. I want it to be only 80%. So that's why we are setting it to 80%. And div are by default block elements, so we can set the width directly. If we are using some elements that are not block elements, let's say we are using span, so we have to explicitly tell CSS that yes, we want to use it as block element. So for this, what we write is display block or display inline block. Just a second. Yeah. So this will create a card for us, and in card we have some bullets. I'll first of all comment some fun part. This one by one. If I now reload the page, yeah. So till now, yeah, I was telling about the cards. So in card, I have this image. To align this image, what I've done is, yeah, I have this image with the ID human. You can see human here, right? With ID. So I'm setting its width to 20%. This width I have set to 20% because the image size is big and I want it to be a little bit small. I definitely want its position to be absolute for now, as we are not focusing on responsive layout for now. So I've set its position to absolute. From top, I want it to be 13 em, and from left, I want it to be 25 em. This I have adjusted according to my screen. This is the 13 em part, and this is the 25 em part. So it has put the image here. You can adjust it according to your own screen, and that That's a task for you. So this was for the image. Now, when we come to bullets, we are saying list style to none. Why I'm setting list style to none? If I comment this and if I show you, okay, it's basically getting hidden. What SASS, because I'm modifying the code now. So you can see this purple kind of bullet, this light purple shade of bullet is coming because of the span bullet that we have created. And this black bullet is coming because of the unordered list. So I don't want this black bullets to be there. So I have removed style, list style, and I've set it to none so that we don't see this black bullets here, as you can see. How have we created this light purple bullets? For this, I'm targeting this fan and with the class bullet, I'm setting the width to 10 pixels, height to 10 pixels, and see this, I'm using display inline block. Now what block elements will do is, it will take up the full screen. Even if it's going to consume only this much part, it will take up the full screen and the element adjacent to it will be shifted to next line. So, and if I want to use the height and width property, I have to make sure that it is a block element. So we have a property called inline block. It will use properties of both inline elements and the block elements so that I can set width and height, and inline elements will not shift the next element to the new line. So I'm setting the width to 10 pixels, height to 10 pixels. I'm setting the background color for this. I'm lighting this our main primary color to 20%. Now, had been there a case that we are using some red color theme in our, for this our project. So I have to come again and again for every color. I have to change this. That's why variables are must for big scale projects. And I'm lightening it by 20%. I'm setting the border radius to 50% so that it's equally curved from all the sides and we get a circular looking effect. Cool. So this is how we're creating bullets. And now the main part. How is this animation coming? What if, let's say, this. If I don't have those animations, this is how it will look. I'm reloading the page. It is there. It's not sliding in. Now I'll add some animation to the bullets. For this, I have this animation is a concept of CSS, nothing new specifically to SASS. But how are we targeting specific element and then adding some delay to individual? That is some part of SASS. So for now, I'm setting animation delay to 1 second for everything. Yes, we have to go back. Okay. So first of all, I am defining the keyframe that says slide right. This is the name of animation that I'm giving. This to property tells what it has to do. I want to transform my elements to their original position. This is the original position. Initially, what I have done is I have transformed, I have shifted them on x-axis to 100 minus 100%. So it shifts everything to left. So we don't see anything initially. Then our final thing is we have to transform it to its initial page so that we can see a slide from we can see an effect that it is sliding from left to its original position. So I have created an animation of 2 seconds that is using slide right keyframe that we have defined here and its direction forward. Right. Now animation delay. if I set animation delay to, let's say, 1 year, you can see all these are coming together. That is something I can do with normal CSS also. It's not a big deal. But to target specific list item and to give it a specific 1, 2, 3, they're coming one by one. To give this effect, I'm using a for loop here that we have learned. I'm using the for. I'm defining a variable I from 1 to 3 because we have 3 bullets now. And all these things are same. I'm setting animation delay to I by 3 seconds. We are concatenating this basically. So I will be 1, 2, 3. So first animation delay will be, delay is basically after what time, like after page load, after what time this animation, this particular animation has to run. So first animation will be run by like 1 by 3. That will be 0.33 seconds, right? Second will be run after 2 by 3 seconds. Third will be run by 3 by 3. That is after 1 second. So for every particular list item, we have a nice sliding fit, as you can see here. First, then second, and the third. 1, 2, 3. So I hope you got it how we are doing this. And if I show you the compiled CSS file for this animation, we are saying we can see list item nth child 1. Our loop is populating with these values for every child. So list item 1, list item 2, list item 3. And it's also adding some browser specific codes, styling codes, so that our code, our CSS code is always compatible with any browser we want. I'm not sure about Internet Explorer because anyway, so okay. So yeah, you can see it is setting animation delay to 0.33333 seconds. For here it is setting to 0.66667, that is 2 by 3, and here it is setting to 1 second, that is 3 by 3, right? So this is our power of SASS by using just one for loop. We can do this. So we can also generalize this for loop, for we can maybe create it inside a function and then we can pass some list. We can do anything with this one. This is something for another day. So yeah, uh, this was, so this completes our left part of the page. Now let's move on to the right part. Right part is a basic contact form. There's nothing, it just say it is a section inside the main. The section name is contact. I've created a card. Basically, let's show you. This is this white portion that you can see, the background. It is a card. Inside this card, I have created a H1 and gave it contact. This is the black thing, and span that I have explicitly targeted and set it to some different color. All these you have to do using variables. It's a task for you. I have created some input fields. These are some nice input fields. I've added some paddings and all. So let's say this is the contact card. I want it to be 80%. I don't want it to consume the full width. Then the background color, I want it to be white. I've set the padding to 1.4 em, border radius to 10 pixels. You can see these rounded corners, beautiful rounded corners. And then we have a box shadow. What is box shadow? You can see there's some black shadow coming from all the sides. Let's say if I remove this block shadow, you can see the shadow is gone. It's now just a boxy looking thing. To give it a look that it's coming forward, we use shadows, right? So box shadow, I don't want to scale it anywhere to the x-axis. On y-axis, I want to push it down to 10 by 10 pixels, and I want to spread and blur it by 35 pixels, so that we have effect till we have some distance where it's getting blurred, but it is getting spreaded, right? And I want color to be 0.5 transparency of black color. So this is RGBA. A stands for alpha, 0, 0, 0, and 0.5. Cool. For input, I have created a width of 95%. I'll tell you why. Height, I want 3 em. If I don't use this height, you can see how ugly this looks. Black. Right. So I'm creating a height of 3 em. I've set some margin, the top, bottom, and left, right margin. I have this nice border radius so that it looks a little curvy. Then I have a border of 1 pixel, solid and gray. This you can see a nice gray border. I want the font size inside this to be 16 pixels, and I want padding left to be 10 pixels. Because of this padding left, I'm setting this width to 95%. Let's say if I change the padding to 100 pixels, you can see the ill effect it is causing. So that's why all these things get resolved in when we are building things for responsive layout, but that's something for another day. And this is the text area where we can write multiple lines of code. So the text area I have defined as type text. I don't need this anyway. I'll just copy the input thing, that's why. Yeah, I'm setting the placeholder to message, and I'm defining 5 rows. Rows is basically the height of this text box. Right. I want this text area. I want this text area to have some margin on top so that it's getting separated from all these, and a border radius of 5 as we are using. Now you can see this is some code that we're using again and again and again. So you can either use extents, you can create a pseudo element. Uh, to create pseudo elements, what we do is we basically write a percent sign, then we write a name, let's say margins, and then we write a block of code, and anything that we write inside this will be let's say will be a pseudo element. This whole block will be a pseudo element, and then we can use at the rate extend percentage margin, and this will consider this margin as an element and extend all the code inside this. Or you can use mixin, or if you have created a particular code for any class or any selector, so you can use that too. That's a task for you guys. Right, so let's say contact card. We have this text area. I've set the font size to 16 pixels. That is equivalent to 1 em. I've set some padding. This is universal padding that I've set to all the fields for the name field, email, mobile number, and also 10 pixel padding to messages text area. I have a specific font family. I like Open Sans that is installed in my system, so it is using Open Sans everywhere. And for the button, I hope you guys can see the button. This. Yeah. So this is the button that says send message. Right. So the send message button, I have again set a margin top of 1 em to separate it a little bit. Background color, I have set it to the color I am setting everything till now. Border, I see by default buttons have that annoying outside border, right? I don't want any border, so I've set border to 0. So this will remove the border. I want border radius to be 5 pixels. I want padding to be 10 pixels, and I want the button width to be 100% to cover the full card. So that's why I've set the width to 100%. I want text transform to uppercase. So if we see the button, it's in sentence case, that is send message, and this uppercase transform everything to the capitals. I want fonts to be bold. I want color to be white, and font size to be extra large. Because small font for a button doesn't look good. It's a part of user experience that you want to highlight an important part of the, what a person expect after writing the message, after filling all the details, what a person expects. He want to send message, so you have to, highlight what, so user can easily understand what he has to do next. And that's the end of a code. And if you guys have followed the tutorial along and done the hands-on coding, you might have come up with the same page like this, with this animation, with this text field, with this button, with this title. And I want you guys to play around with the background, play around with some elements, try to get this human to slide in, or try to get everything slide in from different directions, add some animations, use the loops for somewhere, like for some fields, adding some properties to fields, lightning elements, lightning this bullet list as we have done for the headings in the demo I showed you while using the for loops. And You can use mixins, variables and mixins that you have to use definitely for now. One thing that now we are going to do, we are going to separate the code. We are going to use partials. I want everything, every related thing to be in separate files. So I'll show you a demo with that also. Okay, so this is the main section of the code, main part of the code. It has section 1 uh, that says section info, and it has a section contact. So I'll take all this part starting from here to here, and I'll put this in a separate file. So let's assume that there's another developer who is creating a basic layout of your file, and then in that layout you have to write individual elements, individual code, right? So yeah, so I have removed this from here, and you can see everything is messed up now. So I'll create a partial that says underscore main dot SCSS. I've created this partial. I've added all the code in this partial. Nothing is working still. Why? Because we have not included a partial to the main SCSS file. And why only in main SCSS? Because main SCSS file is generating the main CSS file, and this main CSS file is included in our HTML code. You can see here. It's in the CSS directory, and the name of the file is main.css, right? So let's include this partial. Include partial, what we do is we import and we write the name that is we have in the same directory, I guess. Okay, I have created this. Okay, I have to move one level up. Yeah, so I have this. I think I should move this to, and I should also rename this because main CSS main.scss it's getting confusion. So yes, I'll move this. I'll name it to, let's say I'll rename it to main template. Okay, cool. I was also editing the main.css file. We don't have to do this. We have to edit the SCSS file. This is a blunder that I was making. Never mind. So I'll do import. I'll import a main template file. I forgot to put the semicolon. Save it. Everything is back to normal. So this I've done from one file. You can do it for everything. You can do it for individual section. Like for info section, you can create a separate partial. For you can define these utilities like loops, animations, everything in separate file. For contact, you can define everything in separate file. So basically, your main file always, in the most cases I have seen, are only importing things. Other component, all the component specific CSS files are defined with the components, and then we finally import everything from the components folder to our main CSS file. Then everything get compiled together and the code is served. So Simran, yeah, I guess we can end the session here. If you guys have any doubt, you can ask.
Yeah, any doubts are welcome. Any questions are welcome. No questions are silly questions. Actually, the silliest of questions are the best questions, actually. If you have
Yes.
any doubt, you can leave it in the chat or raise your hands. So, yeah, it's been a great session. I myself am very new to SASS and I've been able to understand all concepts very well. Thank you very much for this amazing session. Thank you. Anybody has any questions?
Any questions you can please ask.
Or you can reach out to Akshat later. Oh, thank you, Aditya.
Yes.
Yeah, you can reach out to Akshat later on his socials.
One second, I think for that also. Okay. So here are my details. So if you are watching us on Zoom, you can interact with us directly. And if you are seeing us on any other platform, then you can maybe contact me via email. You can connect me via LinkedIn, follow me on GitHub, see some of my quotes anyway. Or if you want to have a personal chit chat, you can join me. You can follow me and I'll connect with you on Instagram also. So yeah, Simran, you can conclude the session if no one has any doubts.
Sure.
Sure.
Yay, we did it. We sat through a 1 hour, 40-minute session. Thank you to everybody that stayed for the entire session. And I hope all of you learned SASS through it and followed along with the demo, and will be doing more with the demo application that was shown to you. We believe uh, we believe that any changes that you make, everything can be improvised. So the demo that was shown to you, there was some homework that Akshat has given you, which I think would serve well as practice for all of you. And any improvements that you make, we'd love to see it. So make changes and improvements and share it on your set up a repository on GitHub and tweet to us or text us telling us what changes you've made, and we'd love to see it. So yeah, thank you. We have a recommended learning path for you if you wish to go over the fundamentals of SAS and CSS once again. You could establish your fundamentals, brush up your fundamentals on Progate once again. You've got access to the HTML and CSS lessons for this weekend, and we've also got a SAS path on Progate. So you can complete the HTML and CSS lessons on Progate and the SAS lessons as well. And for the official docs, you can go to sas-lang.com/documentation, as Akshat had previously mentioned. If you have any doubts during this process as well, you can reach out to either of us and we'd be happy to help. Thank you. Thank you for every one of you for joining us today and being a part of this Code with Ken session. Thank you, Akshat, for joining us today and delivering this amazing and insightful and knowledgeable session. Thanks a lot.
Thanks a lot, Simran, and thanks a lot to Progate for giving me this opportunity. And thanks a lot, everyone, to join this session, to interact. It was nice. It was nice being with you guys and to take the session also.